days. That was because Doggo has been having a really horrible time of it. She ended up running into a root. She's been bee stung at least 8 times in the same spot. At least that's how many bumps I count. And it looks like she's also got a spider bite in her belly area. So I gotta take her to a vet this next week and get some blood work done on her and find out if she's okay or not. Because she also has an edema issue near one of her glands behind her left leg front. So I've been babysitting her and taking care of her and not had much time to do anything else because I don't want her jumping up and down on stuff. So I've been lifting her and setting her down so she doesn't have any issues with movement. I don't want her to strain her front leg. Hi Autumn, how you doing? Just doing a fill-in tonight because I've been busy trying to take care of my doggo. So I just wanted to cover one. I wanted to mention a show tonight. Untold Radio AM had an excellent show tonight. I listened to the entire thing because they shared a multitude of different kinds of sound bites of different kinds of cryptids. I believe they had captures, at least all the ones I listened to sounded like they were either Bigfoot, Dogman, Dino, stuff I couldn't identify. At least one I couldn't identify. And a couple of language bites. One language bite very clearly, the Bigfoot in the audio clip said the words Yatahe. Yatahe is the Dene greeting. So whatever cryptid they recorded was speaking Navajo. Uh, that's something to note because there's a lot of reports and even lore about cryptids utilizing Native American languages, and the fact that they were able to share one tonight on the Untold Radio AM show that actually you could audibly hear Yatahe. So it's a greeting. So it was two individuals talking and one clear audio clip of the greeting itself. So I've already posted that show's link to my post section. I will add it to this live once I am done with it. My channel I can now correct and fix, things on my shorts, and I can place them in playlists. I still can't upload, but progress has been made. At least I can, properly categorize what I've been trying to put up. It's just I can't post yet. So anyway, I can still do live, so I can still post pictures. Let me get into... Oh, definitely. I've been kissing on her and loving her and giving her... So let me show you what the heck's going on with her real quick. Let me turn this camera around. We're going to show off on you, baby. So she got stung like multiple times in the armpit here. And it's caused a bit of fluid buildup. So I've been using a hot compress on that. And then this morning, found that she'd been bitten by a spider, it looks like. And she's all red and irritated there, and the gland is swollen there. So I have got to get her in for a check and maybe some blood work because I don't know why she was having problems with fluid buildup under her skin and between her muscles. That's a little worrisome because she did get bit 5 times last year by a tick. I did some reading up on Lyme's. It takes up to 5 months before it expresses in a dog. And I hope to God that is not relevant. I hope that is not anything she's going through. But that, I'm sorry. I've just been taking care of her, and I've been really worried about her because she's my love. And she finally got some good movement back yesterday and today. Uh, she's been hopping up and down on stuff last yesterday and today, even though I tried to catch her and keep her from doing that, and I can just, lift her, but nope, she's been doing it behind my back, so I know she's feeling a little better, but I don't want to risk anything with her. I would rather have her checked, and, if she needs medication, do that. If she needs surgery, God, I hope not. Because she does have a problem with, like, getting cysts and pockets of granular buildup under her skin and between her tissues. So she's already gone through one surgery for that sort of thing. I hope to goodness this is not going to be another one for her. Please no. I don't want to see her have to go through that. But I'll let you guys know how she's doing once I find out more. She's not expressing a temperature. She doesn't have elevated heart rate or anything like that. Uh, Nothing seems to be abnormal, just that she's got inflamed limbs and she's got a bunch of bites on her body. And then, the crash out in the yard, she limped for a couple of days and I had to wrap her front left ankle because it was weak for a couple of days. And that's another reason why I don't want her jumping up and down on stuff. I don't know if that's a muscle strain or if that's a ligament or tendon issue. So I'd rather have a veterinarian check that out before I let her stress it out. I know, poor girl. I'm glad is getting around, and she hasn't dropped off on her food. She hasn't dropped off on her water. She hasn't become listless. She hasn't had any problems doing her business. I was just, she'd been limping, she'd been hurting, and she's had a histamine reaction, which is not uncommon. That dog's been stung so many times, I don't even, God, she goes after bees all the time. I hope she hasn't built up some sort of an allergic reaction to them. But that's, I've also been giving her like half a Benadryl morning and night just to try to take some of the swelling down for her and hopefully get the reaction that's going on slow, which it looks like it has been after I started that. God. Anyway, that's been on my mind and I've been taking care of her. So I'm very sorry I haven't been here for you guys, but she's like family to me, so she's important. I gotta take care of her. No, Amy. Oh, maybe you can give her a counter. Oh, I see what you're talking about. Per pound. I know. I can give her a higher dose of that. Just because I don't know what's going on with her, I don't want to bring that dose up too high. I want to keep it really low, just in case something else goes reactionary with her. Before, I'd rather have a vet's attention to her before I go overboard on that sort of thing. Careful about the rattlesnakes. Concerned about them. They've killed 3 people in just a month in Southern California. Yeah, thank goodness we haven't had too much in the way of bad snakes. Although my chair today had 3 garter snakes sunning on it, under it, when I went out this afternoon. So they are moving around. And this yard's pretty well overgrown. I mean, I just pulled up beginnings of a poison oak bush out of the yard. A little spike came up with a few leaves on it. I'm like, I don't need that here. And there's a lot of spiders here, and I just found a tick nest, and we just took care of a yellow jacket nest yesterday near the route that she bumped into on fucking last Friday. So some maintenance work has to be done to the yard to keep the pests out. Yeah, she's going on 11, Autumn. She's born October 21st, 2015. And she's been having cysts and other growths coming up on her. I'm hoping this is not something weird like cancer coming on her or something like that. That's why I gotta get some blood work done on her. It's so hard to say what bites she got toxins. Well, I got bit last year with, or no, 2 years ago now, almost three. I was bitten by a hobo spider that gave me a viral meningitis. And unfortunately, the bite on her belly looks kind of hobo-like, and it does have two little black dots. So I hope to God she doesn't have viral meningitis. But I walked around with it for 3 freaking months before I was diagnosed with it. It finally started keeping me from breathing at night, and that's when I realized I was actually sick from the damn illness. Oh, she got stung by several, me too, last summer. Bees, trees in Arizona. Oh, yeah. We have a lot of ground bugs here and hornets and all kinds of nasty stuff, so the woodwork is full of critters. DKB, it's my main concern. Rattlers in California and Arizona, where I reside. Well, thank God they usually rattle at you and warn you, but yeah, they're. I used to live in Central Oregon where you got 4 foot long freaking rattlesnakes. Yeah, they're not fun, and you got a lot of them over there. I'll let you guys know. I'll post something as soon as I get back from the vet. I'll put it up in my post section just to let you guys know what's going on with her. Because I grew up on a mink ranch diagnosing animals, and as far as I can tell, she's just been bit too goddamn many times and had a strain that has put her under the weather pretty bad. But I'm no expert and I'm not a veterinarian. So, on that note, let's get into the topic. Other than the Untold radio show, please go check them out. They really had some excellent. They probably uh, they probably put up somewhere somewhere between 18 and maybe 28 different sound clips of different cryptids, uh, all in a row, and repeated some of them so you could hear them more than once. They also did some cross references historically to previous encounters, like in the mid 1800s, with some of these things. Also, correlated sound bites from Russia here, etc. So it's quite extensive. They did a really good job. Please, please go listen to their sound bites. See if you've heard any of those sounds. But right now, I'm going to get into the topic of tonight's live, the Sitka, or reed people, and their various types of modes of transportation when they got here. Now, we'll go into the modes of transportation and how they got here, because there are a couple of different stories on both ends of that. So the very first time that natives saw them here on the west coast, they came. Some stories claim they literally walked out of the ocean. Other stories claim they came in reed boats, much like the Shilkauk, the dogmen. I'm not sure which way they came, but one of the methods that they first utilized when they got here to off-haul goods from their boats was to collect long sticks that had a fork at the end and then had two Y sections with a central, you know, trunk to the sapling tree. And they would tie bundles and hang bundles from the front of the stick, and then between the two hinge points, sometimes they'd collect a stick that was longer, and they'd have 2 or 3 hinge points, because these people were very tall. They were considered giants, and they could be anywhere between 12 and maybe 18 feet in height, according to some stories. So these original Travelwa sticks could hold quite a bit. They could hold maybe 400 or 500 pounds of stuff. And what you do is you just hold it over your shoulder and drag it behind you. That would leave, your footprints in front and a single drag line behind you. And they would usually wiggle in the mud or soil as they moved, or they would bump and skip. So their little trailways would have divots where they would miss the ground, and then they would have kind of a snaky pattern sometimes, or they would have knurling in the mud where they were drug. The next variation, and we learned, according to my native grandmother, we learned creation of the Travelwa and the traveling stick, both of these items, from the Adeena people. So I'll get into more lore about them after I talk about their ways of moving around the United States. So once they required more ability to control their goods and to haul more stuff, they added another stick. This is a normal, Plains Indian style Travelwa. Normally you used 18 to 22 foot long sticks. You would tie them together at the front. You'd make a big hide basket in the middle, or you'd make a woven plat, and you would tie all of your equipment, everything that you needed to that. It would be, all your pots and pans, so to speak, your clothes, your tent, anything that was a household item went in this bundle. And then you would hook this to the front of your horse's saddle, and you would drag it behind your horse. Smaller versions, it would be you, no horse, and you would drag it by hand, and you would hold the sticks on either side. Your body would be in the middle of this triangle, and the two poles would be behind you. Those travel walls were smaller. You might have a 10 or 12-foot pole for something like that. But again, you could carry, 400 or 500 pounds on something like that and pull it pretty easily. And then the last item that the Adena people were supposed to have used, and this is more of the reed people, not the shark tooth. We'll get into that in a minute. There was also stories that they used a cart that only had two wheels, and that it had a crooked or sometimes bowed set of rails, and then there was a handle across the front where they could pick it up and move it around like a rickshaw, and you could carry 1,000 pounds or more sometimes in a cart like this. This cart and the style of this cart is also supposedly one of the stories connected to the Big Dipper constellation. In really ancient times, the Big Dipper was sometimes seen as a cart in some cultures. Like in the Nordic cultures, the Big Dipper is Woden's cart or Odin's cart. Sometimes it was considered Thor's chariot. Other cultures around the world also considered it a chariot or a cart. That included the Egyptians and, well, let me think, what other, um, there was one other culture. Anyway, take a look in ancient, uh, you know, astronomical constellations and the lore about them, and you'll find that the Big Dipper is not just the bear, it has a lot of different lore about it in different cultures. And it might be because of ancient people like the Adena people, the giants. And when you had tracks with these, you would get grind points because they would slip sometimes. And they didn't really have, they just, according to my grandmother, there was a pair of wooden locks that they would put a pole through. And then they had wheels that you would stick the end of the post through, and you would put a cross pin in that. So there was nothing to keep these wheels from jogging back and forth as you moved along or binding. It was just because it had a couple of stirrups that held a central pole in, and then you just had wheels that were pinned in place with, more or less a carved grommet in the back so the wheel wouldn't shift too far, and then you had a little bit of a shift in the wheel. So the tracks from these things would wobble occasionally, and they wouldn't be straight, and they would have buildup on cut edges where they would move through. And these wheels didn't have any iron binding around them, so they would wear out. They would start, they'd be a very clean print, and then by the end of the travel, they would be narrowed down. Instead of being half round or squared at the bottom, they would be V'd because the sides had worn off. So that's a potential for some of the unusual ruts around the world. Uh, Whereas both of these Travelwa types typically had a half circle or half round, because they're just a pole. And until they either wore flat on the bottom or they wedged because of travel, you'd have a half round shape, and then, as the pole wears out, the shape that's drugged behind changes. So the Adena people were considered the red-haired giants, and they didn't have hair on their bodies. They had long hair on their heads, like the Kandahar giants. They had 6 to 7 toes and fingers, and part of them were supposedly cannibals, and part of them were not. So the names, you can just, in general, you can call them the Adeena people or the Fairmont people, because the Fairmont region of California was where they originally supposedly came to the West Coast at. Then they supposedly spread eastward into the Great Plains and south into, southwestern areas like New Mexico, Arizona, etc. They were reportedly cave dwellers, and they were furniture builders in later times. So they had very European tables and chairs, something that most native people didn't utilize. That was the other reason for them to always have such big carrying devices, because they carried a lot of stuff with them that natives wouldn't have carried. We sat on the ground, for instance. We didn't use chairs. If you needed a plate or a surface, you laid down something like a hide, or you'd lay down a piece of bark, work on that. But these people, they built furniture. And that was one of the things that was noted in the Lovelock Cave. There were table and chairs in the Lovelock Cave when the cowboys got in there, so to speak. But my native grandmother said they also built beds. So you can kind of group the Adeena people into a couple of different categories. You've got the large tan giants with red hair that have shark teeth, 6 fingers to 7 fingers and toes, and they ate humans. And they were hairy all over. Then you have what my grandmother called the reed people, which were, they evidently, both of these cultures came around the same time and looked similar and behaved similar in some ways. But one were vegetarians, they ate mostly reeds and a few small animals. The others were very carnivorous and ate people. So the shark-toothed Adena people were cannibalistic, and the ones that had more human-looking teeth had a more omnivorous or vegetarian diet. So there are several names that my grandmother gave me while telling me lore. She called them the Fairmont people, the Adena people, the Reed people. Those are the most general terms. But then she also described the Paiute name, which is Sitika, which were the shark-toothed people that ate other humans and each other. The Hunkpapa side of my family, though, called them Sisiya, and that would mean either reed or or the other, Sitka. So there was some confusion in our lore about which cryptid we were talking about. And this was even, back in the 1830s. There was some question because the lore was so old. These people supposedly came to the west coast of the United States somewhere between 35 and 38,000 years ago, which would put them right around the time we started having a lot of melting of the ice, our polar caps. My native grandmother claimed there was a lot of mud in that era. The, the ground, as she said, was water soaked, so it was very soft. She said the ground was spongy in texture in some areas. You would go through it and your tracks would disappear because the ground would lift back up. Uh, the very first name that she knew was the Sikya people, was what they called themselves. And there are some lores that suggest they were also called the Yucca people because they used the yucca plant and reeds to make their clothing. Because the ones that were not hairy all over used grasses and plants to make clothing out of it. And they would wear grass, like tule skirts. They would make a tule cloak to keep rain off of them. And supposedly they wore tule hats and would make, like woven tule shoes or sandals to wear. And reportedly they would either use sikiyahe or, not sikiyahe, excuse me, yakahe or yatahe. So either with a K, T, or H sound, so it would be yahahe, yakahe, or yatahe as a greeting. Today, the Navajo still use yatahe as a greeting. My native grandmother claimed that that word came from the Adena Reed people that were friendly, the Yucca people that utilized plants, not the other guys that were all hairy and cannibals. So, it's a little bit about those guys and a little bit about the language uh, variation. And there is, even in the last 400 years, there have been some drift in the sounds between K, H, and T and D within native languages. And I don't know if that is because the person listening to the word can't understand if it's a d, k, a, what kind of sound it is, or if it was the notation of it that changed the spelling. Because I found a couple of words that have differences in pronunciation, and it's only one hard sound typically in some of the ancient lore names of some of the cryptids I'm aware of. So part of what I might be dealing with is linguistic drift in pronunciation. Yippee! In the last 200 years. Alright, so let me go up. If you guys have questions, please put them in caps. Oh, and thank you, Autumn, for saying hit the like button. Appreciate you guys. Okay, yeah, spider bites are no good, and especially if she ended up with a... God, I hope it's not. Hope she did not get bit by a hobo, because they are known to carry viral meningitis. Oh, spider bite. 4:14 p.m. Ouch. Okay, DKPP, she's off the leash a lot. In the wilderness, Moshi is black, Labrador, half pit bull. Yeah, my doggo, if I have a place where I can let her off the leash, I do that. But she's got such a nice yard here for the most part, even though it's kind of small. It's only like 20 feet deep and maybe 30 feet long in the back. But she's got a lot of places she can go hang out and she can crawl around in the bushes and whatnot. I just got to get some of it cleaned up. We've been working at it for a while and I got to get out there and do some more. Because I found too many things in the yard that just need to be removed. Okay, synthetic nature, I think they call the Jabbar Fohi, probably not how it's spelled. Their silk is yellow, their eggs are yellow. Vintages know when they yellow eggs, they turn around. What are you talking about? I'm very curious about that one. Oh, in the Congo they have spiders with leg spans, 4 feet. Oh yeah, I've seen pictures from the turn of the century, synthetic. They're pretty seriously, insanely sized spiders. There are still tribal people in South America that, or in the Congo, excuse me, that live in huts that are constructed to keep the spiders out that are that size. So it's, I think the last known attack was in the 70s when some documentary people and scientists were biologists, I think it was in there, and somebody got carried off in one of the villages that there were researchers in, and there were, notes taken of the event. Okay. Yes, Amy, it was an incredible show. And I remember seeing you there, so you can definitely vouch for the amazing audio clips that they presented tonight. That's why I'm encouraging everybody, please go listen to them because there is a wide variety of audio clips that they presented tonight, and they were all very different. They were all very unique. You'll never go outside again at night, Amy. Well, some of that stuff I hear during the day up here. Just because there's some unusual things in this valley. Okay. User in 1845. I was 8'3". Well, reincarnation. At least you remember your life. Audie Aaron, listening and fighting sleep. Oh my God, it's 2:18 here. I'm so sorry to keep you up. Uh, Travelwa. Thank you for the spelling correction. I will have to do that. I just spelled it the way it sounds. Travelwa. Yep. You could also put your kids and your elderly in it, or animals that were injured, etc. Oh, no worries, Amy. Don't worry about it. Hello, hello. Pleased to meet you. Oh, good. I'm glad you're enjoying the topic tonight. Okay, Autumn, the Adena people, red giants, reed people. So, yep. Oh, hey, Dale. Good to see you tonight. Okay. Spider bite. How big do you say the spider was? Well, the one that got to Karma couldn't have been too big, but the bite mark is almost a 1/4 inch wide, so I'm assuming it was at least the size of a quarter. I got bit one by when I ended up with viral meningitis. The one that bit me was a little bit bigger than the one that potentially bit her. And it bit me in the palm of my hand, and I automatically responded in my sleep and killed it and wiped it on my bed sheet. Because I, I don't move in my sleep. And when anything happens to me in my sleep or I decide to move, because I make a conscious decision in my head to move. So I wake up before I move in my sleep and then I roll over or do whatever I'm going to do. It's always been that way in my life. My mother was the same way, and so was my grandmother. I don't know if it's a Native American thing or if it's just that's the way Bigfoot sleep. So I know I have good responses in my sleep. The Doug Duggos? What are the Buggos? Bugos? Bugos. Buggos? Buggos. Have been dated to 12,500 years. I'm not sure exactly what a Bugos is or a Buggos. Spider bite. I had a bird mouse eating spider in my house once. It was really big. I certainly. I currently have wolf spider running around my house. It's a funny thing. Yeah, I just killed a wolf spider this last week that was about the size of a 50-cent piece that came in on the ceiling in this house. So there, springtime. Uh, Everything starts moving around. So I know there's a lot of conjecture about giants. It would stand to reason. I mean, take a look just 100 years ago. How many big trees were on this planet? We call them old growth. Old growth now is anything that's what, 10 feet or more? I remember one area that my mom would take me to in the redwoods that we camped. And this wasn't even in the sequoias. This is just an old redwood tree that she knew the location of. It was rotten. It was just a trunk or what was left of a trunk. But the trunk was the piece that was left was approximately 45 or 50 feet in height and probably 30 feet ish across and kind of a big half round U-shaped section of it. We could pull our 52 Dodge pickup truck into the center of the trunk of the tree and camp between the tree and the trunk and use it as a windbreak and have no issue with completely being concealed, at least on one side, because the tree was massive. So if you consider that trees just 100 years ago could be upwards of 30 feet across, because that tree was supposedly cut in the mid 1800s. Supposedly. So trees were that size, 10 to 30 feet in diameter and 200 plus feet tall. I think our oxygen level on this planet would be significantly higher. And we know with an oxygen-rich atmosphere, if you don't die off because of oxygen poisoning, which is also a possibility, you do have a tendency to grow bigger. Along with, if you've got enough good food sources, you also grow bigger. Because, our height, the American people's height in the last 100 years has gained 4 inches because we have a better diet. Um, so if you were living in a primordial forest, you might actually be taller just because of the oxygen and the food sources that you have available. So that's something to consider if you're thinking about whether or not we had a different form in ancient times, or if other creatures living alongside of us could have had a bigger form. It might have something to do with the fact that we don't have as many trees anymore. And some of the trees in uh, the, the sequoia area, the sequoia forest, they were even bigger. My mom showed me a tree there that was similar. It was a leftover trunk, but it was bigger. It was in two sections instead of one, but you could have put the redwood inside of it twice over, and it was just huge. It was probably a 45 to maybe a 60-foot across tree. There wasn't enough to tell exactly how big it was, but I paced it off a couple times when I was a kid, and it was still something like 67 steps across with my little kid legs. So it's that would be 120 feet across the center of it, maybe. Maybe my estimate was wrong, but I remember pacing back and forth and thinking, "My goodness, this had to have been an absolutely massive tree." Not thinking about how big it could have been, but in a kid's mind, it's huge. Okay, let's go back up. Okay, spider. Okay, yeah, I already read that one. Spider. This is one about as big as a golf ball, and it's been here for a few months. Oh, yo, yo, that's a big freaking wolf spider. I would love to send you a photo of a tree. A branch literally changes position while I'm snapping photos. I'd love your opinion on it. Oh, interesting. I think I've actually seen posts of a tree doing that. Well, there's old European lore. What were they called? Ettins? I think they were called Ettins. Supposedly there was lore about trees in Europe that could move, and I believe they were part of the Black Forest trees, but I can't be 100% on that because it was quite a few years ago that I read about that stuff. But there is some lore. There's some folklore about that sort of thing going on. Autumn, the trees in the 1800s were giants, 20, 200, maybe 300 foot or bigger. Yeah, I can believe that from the tree trunks that I've seen um, camping with my mom. Some of those trees had to have been massive. That and some of the pictures. Seeing people 30, 40 feet up a tree using a push-pull saw and it taking 6, 8 people aside to move the saw back and forth through the tree to hand cut it down. That's a massive tree. Too bad they cut them all down. Our world would probably be much better off if they hadn't, because I have no idea how many hundreds, if not thousands, of years it's going to take for those trees to grow back. And we're not letting them do that. Synthetic, there were trees in the ancient world that were miles tall. That's possible. There are some pretty good sized petrified tree, like cores, tree trunks, that sort of thing, both in Arizona and almost over to Idaho on the eastern side of Oregon. Um, some of those trees are pretty huge that are petrified. So I can believe that we had much bigger things, trees, everything had to have been bigger the further back we go in history. Just because our atmosphere was different and the land lay was basically undisturbed except for anything that was a natural disaster. So, with the exception of, flooding, tsunami, volcanic action, fire, there wouldn't have been much of anything that would have taken the trees down. Uh, there weren't too many animals that were knocking trees over and eating them, for instance. Uh, your grazers and stuff like that. And we already know that from the Carboniferous period, I think it was, or no, is it Carboniferous? I think I think it was Carboniferous. There are so many periods in ancient time; it's hard to keep them all straight because there are dozens of them to keep in your head. Uh, we had really big life forms here. We had things that graze at the top of 200-foot tall trees and not even think about it. So our land lay is nothing now like it was then. Our trees aren't the same. Our life forms aren't the same. We can't think about the past in modern terms because it's just not relevant to what was going on at those periods. Okay, synthetic. All those flat top mesas in Arizona. Yeah, it's possible. Were once trees, and the story goes, God sent Archangel Michael down, cut the tall trees so the giants wouldn't climb them to survive the flood. Mm, that's European lore. The native lore doesn't say that. Devil's Tower, for instance. There's a couple of lore pieces that I know about Devil's Tower. One, and I'm not going to name the tribes because I don't remember them off the top of my head, but I do remember the different stories. You can look them up. One story claimed that there were 7 maidens that climbed to the top of Devil's Tower in order to escape a massive bear that was attacking them, and it raked the side of the rock. The 7 maidens prayed to the Creator. The Creator lifted them into the sky and turned them into the Pleiades. That lore comes through like the Central Plains Indians. So there are several tribes that actually share that particular lore. And in my particular Hunk Papa side of my tribal descendancy, um, there was a misunderstanding by colonizers about that lore, and it got confused that instead of the maidens going into the sky and becoming the Pleiades constellation, one historian that was trying to write the stuff down confused the story and thought that the girls came from the sky and came from the Pleiades. That's why there's a mix-up in some Sioux lore, Lakota lore, etc., that we came from the Pleiades when it was the other way around. They went to the Pleiades, not us. And then there's another version of the story where people climbed the tree in order to be safe from the bear. So there's a story that Devil's Tower was a tree. There's also what was one other story my grandmother told me about that. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'll have to think about it. Okay, spider. I think the trees then were in proportion to the size of every living thing back then. All was huge. Yeah, that would make sense. Because there was nothing to cut them down. There was nothing to really intrude upon nature just doing its thing. Okay, Hollis, I've listened to Pastor in several different interviews. He saw a 22-foot local giant on a mountain in Mexico. All the locals were aware of his presence, said he would eat people left by the cartel. Yeah, that was also something that was told to me about the Kandahar giants. My ex, the one that committed suicide, he served uh, in that region during the time that the Kandahar giants were captured, and they were exited through his fobbit. So he got to see the bodies being put on a carrier plane, a bigger plane, and one of the hands fell out from underneath the tarp, and he did see part of the face and head of one of them, so he verified He said they had shark's teeth. He said they had red hair. And he said they had 6 fingers. Because that's what he was able to see of the thing. And that the local talk was that they were 12 foot in height. Or maybe a little taller. 15 feet. Um, but that they had long hair, long red hair on their heads. They weren't hairy on their bodies. And they wore skins and hides. And when he asked the local population about them, they all claimed those things that come out after battles, and they'd pick up bodies off the battlefields and eat them. And that's something that they had locally told about those particular giants, the Kandahar giants, for generations, all the way back into the Middle Ages and stuff, back to the Ottoman Empire. There'd been sightings of the Kandahar giant and them coming to battlefields to collect the dead and carry them off to eat them. And there's actually a lot of lore that way too about various unusual cryptids, be they giants or some sort of pale walker that also come to battlefields and take the dead. At least ancient lore talks about that sort of thing. Pale walker was one that was known to the native lore, and I believe Europeans also knew about it. It was a pale-skinned, upright walking humanoid that was very thin that would come into the battlefields. And when my ex was in Afghanistan, he said there was lore about them as well, and they've still called them something similar to a pale walker because they were very light colored. And in fact, when he was on guard duty at his fobbit, and yes, I know where it is, and no, I'm not going to tell you. Uh, there were sightings in the southern mountains near his fobbit of pale walkers. So there were giants of some sort that could be seen. He said you'd see them once or twice a month, on average, usually around the full moon. They may have been there at other times, but they were really visible at the full moon. And yeah, it was not an uncommon occurrence for the 6 months that he was there. He said he saw them several times. And I believe him. I don't think he would have lied to me. He might have been an asshole, but I don't think he was a liar when it came to military stuff. And otherwise, I wouldn't trust him. Okay. Dahil. The interview with Patrick Jackson is worth listening to. There's more to Sabe than most can imagine, and they are guardians after all. Blessings to you. Yeah, the Sabi are the guardians. They're the individual cryptids out in this cryptid world that protect our dumbasses from the things that will eat us. And from what I have seen going out into the field, you got layers. You got the more friendly Sabe right in town with you and on the edge of town. The further you get away from town, the more mixed the groups become, and the more dangerous the creature cryptids are that are in the groups, the further you get into remote regions. And I have tested that theory in multiple directions, just walking out my front door, going to the locations I know, and then going beyond the locations that I was taken to. It gets pretty strange the further out in the woods you get. And things get bigger. Even here, they get bigger and more diverse. A lot more different stuff out there. Okay. Spider bite, apparently. Then we were closer to the sun, less gravity. Oh, yeah. If you don't have to be weighed down as much, you're probably going to grow taller, too. Hollis, and it would give a reason, like with less gravity, you wouldn't have the erosion on your feet, your joints, and etc. as quickly, so you would maybe even live slightly longer just because of the nature of the planet. Okay, the Hollis, the local said he lived in the mountains there. Chihuahua, Mexico. Yep, my native grandmother actually told me there were giants that lived near Chihuahua. Believe it or not, that she had old lore about that. Okay, spider bite. The deserts in Australia used to be oceans. Many sea fossils found in the mountaintops. Oh yeah, Southern California. There was an inlet ocean where you got that tip that divides down around Baja. Um, that was an inlet ocean until about 15. We had an earthquake and it drained the inlet ocean. Um, so you'll find fossils all through there. And there are even some Spanish galleons that got trapped in that little inlet ocean because they were moored up on a shoreline when the earthquake happened. So they got floundered there. They never got to leave. They never got to sail home. And then there's also the Midwest through the Great Plains region, east of the Rockies and west of the Mississippi. That was all an inlet ocean at one point in time that dolphins, whales, and plesiosaurs all came to do their thing in yearly and mate. And I kind of wonder if the dolphin, because we just had a dolphin in California go inland and get into a freshwater lake, and now we've got a whale going inland up the Willamette or Columbia River, trying to get to somewhere that probably isn't there anymore. So it makes me wonder if there's been something that is keying those animals, making them want to try to go back to original mating grounds. Might be from all of the hot radiation in the fucking west coast, excuse me, Fukushima. But we're having a die off here. Seals are dying. A lot of life forms are dying. We've lost a lot of critters in the last couple of years since Fukushima. So our ocean is changing, unfortunately. Okay, spider bite a couple of nights ago. The stars looked really, really close. It even looked like the clouds were behind some of them. My eyes might be catchy, acting weird. Yeah, no, I've seen that kind of phenomena too. I think it has to do with like pressure in the air. Maybe how some of our weather comes in, it changes the ocular perception. It's like a difference in the moisture in the air makes things brighter and clearer looking. Okay. Synthetic. Supposedly there are chambers in Devil's Tower that were discovered last month, but if it's true, it's been covered up because I haven't heard anything else since last month. Well, I've also heard some other bizarre stuff about Devil's Tower, and I don't know if it's true or not. There was supposedly root system found under it, um, and then I couldn't find the information again, so I don't know. Uh, Somebody's gonna have to do some sort of scans on things to figure it out. Although my grandma, that was the other, remembered it, the other native lore about Devil's Tower. Uh, an asteroid strike. There was the seven giants, and these are not physical giants, but they were things that hit our planet. Now, I think my grandmother was talking about the asteroid hits from the mass extinction 65 to 66 million years ago, because it doesn't make any sense any other way. It had to have been further back in history than 1200 years ago, or 12,000 years ago, excuse me, 13, when the Younger Dryas event happened. So the other piece of lore that my grandmother talked about was that the Devil's Tower was a push-up point from an asteroid that struck so hard that it elevated itself again from the ground. So it hit, it bounced, and hit again. The impact of the first bounce created Devil's Tower, and supposedly the top chunk of it broke off as it, like a drip or like fluid. You know, if you drop a heavy object into water, you got a splash, it goes outward, and you'll get a central peak, and you'll get a blip of water that separates and becomes a single drop on top and falls back with the rest of it. Supposedly the ground did something similar, and the top peak of the rock broke off and landed in the Atlantic Ocean, and is a floating island, supposedly, which has recently been sighted. My native grandmother claimed that people had tried to inhabit that stone piece for a while, never with success because it sinks occasionally. I don't know how true any of that is, but that is another story about the Devil's Tower. But it goes back far further than any modern lore I'm aware of, and I've never found another story or piece of folklore or lore anywhere else that says much about that. So I don't know. It could be just really old lore that didn't survive anywhere else. Autumn. Natives are Palladian star seeds, caretakers of the Earth Mother. Some people say that. I think we've been here pretty long. Because some of the lore my family talked about is way too old. You know, if the lore point about our creation story is correct, that's preserved in 314 million year old bedrock. And it has Travelwa tracks in it, footprints in it, Dogman tracks, our tracks, animal tracks. There are a lot of tracks preserved in that bedrock. And I haven't even shown you half of the stuff that's in that bedrock. I'm going to have to get down there and try to do some more documentation. I don't know if I can do a live from there. I think I'm too far in the woods at that point. But maybe later in the season I can manage to do that if I can get everything fixed. Okay. Spider Bite, I saw a thing where the Afghan family leave a goat for a giant that lives near them. Yeah, I've seen that too, and I believe they do feed them. Because that was also something that was talked about in some native lore. And part of the reason why we always carried food with us, you feed the cryptid so it doesn't eat you. Or you feed the cryptid to maintain a good, friendly relationship so that they help you. So not bringing food with you would, potentially end you up as the meal. So, those people that say don't feed the Bigfoot, don't feed the cryptids, if it's a choice between I give them a sandwich and I'm not dinner, I'll give them a frickin' sandwich, man. And nobody's sign can tell me god dang different. uh, okay, you're answering each other. Wait, what? Okay, synthetic nature, the ones that found in Ireland between Scotland, found that opened the doors and closed it. Then they scanned figure 5 or 6 fingers, 5 or 6, and one was gone behind the wall and the same chambers. Oh, yeah, the giants over there. We've got, where is it? South Central Oregon. There was Quartzville Road. My mother took me there when we moved here in the 80s. She showed me that doorway. There's a massive doorway in the hillside down there, and it's just right off the road. The day we went, she knew the timing of it because there is a particular timing. The door was cracked. It was open a few inches, and you could tell that it was open. We ate our lunch, and maybe 20 minutes into us eating our lunch, because there was a central slit in the doorway. And it's like 30, 40 feet off the ground, because the doorway is probably 50, 60 feet tall. You could see a hand that came through, just the ends of the fingers came through the slit, and they pulled the door closed. That, according to my mother, that particular door is not so much an entry and exit point, though they can go in and out of it. It's typically used to vent a much larger cave system below ground in that mountain. And that's from old lore. Okay, hollows. The Patagonian two-headed giant is 12 foot. I've seen the mummy still wearing its clothes with its shield. It's in the States still in glass case. It attacked the Spanish coming in on a ship. Oh, wow. I've heard about the Patagonian giants. I didn't know that body was still kicking around, because I've heard stories about that, but I've never seen pictures of it. I've read little clippets here and there of it, but I've been very interested in that particular giant and not ever gotten to see a picture of it. I'd love to see a picture of that mummy. Okay, spider bite. Also before the giant era, Earth was even closer to the sun and even less gravity, and everyone was very bendy, soft bone, like Gumby. I don't know anything about that. I haven't heard any lore or know any lore about that, but I don't mean anything. Okay, synthetic. Every 12,000 years, the Earth moves further from the sun. Well, we actually move around our Milky Way, so that stands to reason, because we make an elliptical orbit around our sun. And then we come back towards it. And it takes 246 billion years to do it, so we're starting our third circumvention as of 2012. So all of the ancient calendars that accurately plot our circumvention of our solar system have it noted already. And things like the Mayan calendar, the Aztec calendar, the calendars in India, one of the calendars in China, they all have records of different sectors of space that our planet travels through, and how far away we get from the sun and how close we get to it. So there is previous evidence of that kind of planetary behavior. Okay. Synthetic, the Earth also expands in those cycles, which would explain why it goes out further away from the sun. Okay. spider bite. What's your take on Gerald the dolphin kidnapping a man to make him build some stuff underwater? Me personally, I'd have to see it to believe it, because that one's pretty far out there for me. Okay, synthetic why? It's why they've been building the underground bunkers to survive a cataclysm. Well, they're probably building those because they think the planet Marduk was going to come back. Remember in 2015 when Marduk was supposed to pass by us, the brown dwarf planet? Well, it didn't pass by us, but the pieces are landing now. The fireballs, the meteors, because that particular Marduk planet broke up on the backside of the Delphinius constellation. It impacted something on the backside of that constellation and fragmented. So the most we're going to see are a few pieces of it. You know, they'll fly by our planet. We might have a few that hit us. I don't think anything's going to take us out, but I don't know. Synthetic sucks to be them. They won't survive. They are where they are now. They need to build bunkers close to the equator and, in high evolution. Elevation. Yikes. I can't talk tonight. Yeah, you better be below the 45th parallel for anything coming from the north for sure. And, you know, be far enough inland that a tsunami with a 200-foot wave won't get you. Because that's the other thing, you know, part of what we don't think about from ancient history, we look at asteroid strikes as only impacting land. We never think about them impacting an ocean. It's bad enough when they hit land, but when they hit an ocean, depending on the size of it and how hard it hits, you could have tidal waves pretty tall. You know, 2, 3, maybe even 400 or 500 feet tall, depending on where it hits and how deep it goes when it hits. Like, if anything were to hit the straits that was massive, would probably create a tidal wave that would go all the way around the planet. Just because of the depth of that water and how much, you know, displacement you'd be dealing with a massive object hitting it. Yeah, I saw that. Some men were coming up the sides of the Devil's Tower. Okay, Autumn. Oh, I was talking about. Okay, thank you for letting everybody know. I'll look up Diehold Foundation. Okay, I'll look that up. Yeah. Yeah, there's been a lot of stories about Devil's Tower having caves in them, having roots under it, having you know, growth bands on top of it. There's all kinds of unusual lore about it. It is a piece of basalt that is not there due to volcanic action, though, and that's something that geologists have confirmed. That particular core is not a jet rock. Does not, you know, wasn't something that came straight up out of the earth fully formed, and it was not due to volcanic action. So it's not like the end of a lava tube that crystallized or anything like that. So if it isn't, you know, a bulge or a bump because of a asteroid hit, then it might also be because of some other reason. You know, it could be an ancient tree. It could be maybe a worn down thing, and it's the hardest piece of the area, and that's the only thing that remained. For instance, the Ozarks, the Smokies, both of those rock mountain ranges have been here on this planet since Pangea, 300 million years ago. And they're smaller, they're shorter, because they've been worn away that much. So maybe that piece of basalt that's Devil's Tower could be something left over from extremely ancient times, too, that there may not be much of any evidence left of, you know, eroded away, already gone with the water and the wind. Yep, we are the third rock from the sun. Okay, Spider, if that story goes way back to before the giants, then the land was not solid. The rocks were pliable too. It could easily happen in those conditions. Uh, Rock can also remain pliable because it's something like tonfa flow or pyroplastic flow, because that stuff doesn't cool immediately. It takes days, if not weeks, in some cases. And Hawaiian Islanders, how they started, pardon my French, how they started fire walking. Now, this is lore told to me by a native Hawaiian friend of mine who said that the reason why the native islanders learned to firewalk is because they were so volcanic, they had to learn how to walk on lava while it was cooling because it was so prevalent in the islands. And that's, you can talk to a lot of Samoans and get the same answer. Oh no, we learned to walk because of the lava. That's why we walk on fire, because we had to walk through lava. Now, if you take that perspective and you apply it to any ancient time where you didn't have shoes, but you might have been alive at the time, anything that you could walk across, if your feet were tough enough, you would have done it. Anything that you could have drug a stick across, if it didn't burn outright, you would have done it. Because if you were evacuating an area, you had to get through whatever was in front of you. If you were going into an area like that, you would likely avoid it. But if you're trying to evacuate, you would likely walk over whatever you had to get out of it. Just saying. Shoes or no shoes. Hey, Beezer. How you doing? Spider bite. Take apples for the Sasquatch and the bones for the Dogman. I know that Dogmen will accept meat, because I'll leave them things like summer sausages, and they love that stuff. And I do let them know, I open the package on one end, and I pull down the covering skin so they know to peel it. Um, they've had a lot of fun with that stuff. And yeah, squatches love apples. They also like bananas too. And you can always tell when a squatch is peeled a banana because they peel it from the flower end instead of the stem end. At least Jen did, and monkeys do, gorillas do, and some native people do too. Closer to the equatorial belt, you harvest your fruit in a different way, and you peel it in a different way because they've done it the same way for generations, and we have in cities done it our way. Okay, Spider-Bite, I've heard of the Patagonian giant, but never knew it had two heads. Yeah, it's supposed to have had two heads. At least one of them. Okay, Hollis. There's a video of him in the glass case. Oh, awesome. I will have to look for that. Thank you, Hollis. Odin. The only thing depressing about knowing the future and how the world ends is absolutely nobody cares beyond their love for idiocracy. True, but I doubt that our planet is going to end. It hasn't ended in 4 billion years, 4.6 billion years. So unless our sun dies, we blow up, or we poison ourselves to death, we'll probably be here. Yep, suspicious observer. Yeah, I know they're not meteors, so it's chunks of a planet. That's why they're fireballs. Uh, Phil, please repent for your sinful lifestyle and accept Jesus as your Lord and Savior. Okay. Synthetic. 200 feet, more like 2 miles high. Okay, Odin, when California goes, Yellowstone goes, so we mine the fault line at the Salton Sea for lithium and subsidize ungranulated electric cars for Elon. Oh yeah. Um, I don't know if Yellowstone is going to go anywhere anytime soon. Uh, but Mount St. Helens is starting to perk up again. Uh, if any mega volcano goes off, you can pretty much kiss the planet goodbye because it would be another mass die-off just because of all the ash in the sky. Nothing would be able to survive it. And Yellowstone is a mega. There are 8 megas around the Mediterranean, and I think there are 3 here on the west coast, if I remember right. They're all dormant. Um, Yellowstone's about the most active. And you really need to start worrying, though, when Mount Rainier starts to shake and rumble. Because it's probably going to be a huge crater if it ever goes off. It'll probably take a good third of the west coast with it. Because it's got veins of magnesium running through it. And it's got trihydrogen carbonates in it. Gas. Trihydrogen gas, excuse me, not carbonate. Trihydrogen gas in pockets. That's a great big matchstick right there. That one could be bad. Spider, no dead people can save you. It's all up to you to find your peace. Odin, you can't have a good car stereo system without capacitor being because of the power they draw. Odin's really sad. I'm not surprised cancer always has such a great chance of coming back. Because the only thing dogs and humans with cancer have in common is immune EMF levels. Yeah, that's actually very true, Odin. You're right on that. He didn't hear it from me. Spider. No, he's talking about the disease. It has a certain energy wavelength. EMF bed canopies are expensive but cheaper than cancer or thyroid disease, even with insurance. Yeah, no kidding, Odin. RFK Jr. talked about cell phone and Wi-Fi radiation, but failed to mention anything important. Yeah. Enough dogs and children who never smoked have died from cancer for you to figure out the reason why EMF bed canopies are made and the respected sleep in bunkers. Yikes, I'm so sorry, Odin. Oh my goodness, Odin. I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah, please keep utilizing that because cancer has been on an upswing for a while now. Probably because of all the pollutants we're eating. And I mean that literally. Most of our food isn't food. Yep, tuning forks. Yeah, human bodies are very much a tuning fork. Yeah, chemo is a killer in itself. I'm just gonna try to get through any more of these comments. It's meteoric rock. It's deflects radiation. Yep, some rock does. Stem cells are only approved for hair conditioners. Odin. Everything is a conspiracy theory, including what merging on the freeway means, and if placenta is for the baby or science. Yeah, we do have an uptick in earthquakes, but then we've been destabilizing our crust for a while. There's already been nuclear wars upon this planet since ancient times, or plain and whatever you have. Yeah, uh, there's Sodom and Gomorrah. There's evidence that they were blown to shit by bombs in ancient times because there's evidence of, what do they call it? Sulfur rock that only occurs in crystals that only occur in radiated ground from a dirty bomb, a nuke. Supposedly, Salton Sea is a window point. Some portals open around different times of year. An old legend says there are Spanish ships that made it to the Salton Sea during a flood. Interesting. That's possible. Who knows? California earthquakes register in Yellowstone. Yeah, well, the West Coast, it shakes a lot and has been for many years. It's obviously shipwrecked. Bees are, they're helpers here. They're about this place, seen and unseen. Very true. Synthetic, there's a story about some guy that found it and looted some gold from it and became wealthy and would go back at certain times of year when the ship was visible and he would loot it some more. Actually, the guy might have tried that, but there were Spanish doubloons on those ships, and this government tracks anybody who comes up with a doubloon out of those ships because they know about the ships and they are aware of how much is there. And they're leaving it buried. And I do know one person that had doubloons from that ship, and it got confiscated. Thought he went missing one of those times. Yeah, I bet he did. They probably got tired. They, as in the government, or some black hat, or some guy in a black suit, probably didn't like the fact he was going in there. I'm glad you got to listen to those, Judy. Yeah, they really did a good job. Really did a good job of presenting a variety of different kind of audio clips tonight. on Untold Radio AM. It just blew me away. I was so happy to hear so many different kinds of sound clips and the variety, language and wolf howls or dog howls, Bigfoot screams, language. I already said that. Just an amazing amount of stuff was aired tonight. Please go check them out. I'm still reeling from all of the excitement from it, as it were. Rio Grande Rift is moving. Yeah, yeah, I can believe that. Um, yep. All right. Well, I've said my thing about the CCI and the different types of Travelwas. I was just trying to let you guys know what was going on in my life, so you're aware of what's going on with the puppy and why I haven't been on. Because I've been focusing on her and not wanting her to hurt herself any more than already whatever the heck is happening to her. At least she hasn't dropped off on her diet, and she's not gotten listless or anything like that. She's still eating and drinking and doing everything well. But it is worrisome, because she is getting old, and I just want her to have a good, healthy last few years, how many ever years she has left. And I hope it's going to be quite a few more, because I'm not ready to have her leave my side. Not by any means. Until radio AM ban? Ban, no ban. No, they have a great show. And with the amount of sound and audio clips that they posted tonight and shared tonight, they really had some amazing stuff on there. So please go check them out. Might help you learn some of the sounds, or maybe help you identify some sounds, or maybe you've heard some of them and you weren't aware. It might help you figure that sort of thing out too. I'm about ready to go out and have a cigarette because I've been talking for an hour and a half. Doggo's napping, so she's doing good. And I figure I'll stay on here for another 20-30 minutes, try to make it into a 2 hour. So if you got any questions, go ahead and hit me up. Otherwise, I might just talk about some of the other local flora and fauna, because there are some giants in this region. We've got some big, tall, skinny guys that are bald and don't wear clothes, and they're tan-skinned. We've got the Odyssey, which is more lizard-like thing. It's also considered a giant. We got something else here that's really giant, but I've not found a track yet. I found some evidence of forest move through that doesn't make sense as being an upright walking thing with 2 arms, 2 legs. The move through seems like there might be a rather long tail attached to it, because some of the trees are broken the wrong directions and not at the right height. Confusing evidence. So until I find something more, I won't know exactly what the heck that thing is. But there's, the giant doorways in this area south of here. And the old native lore said that this entire valley was inhabited by giants at one point in time. We've got the local lore about the giant by the river. There are actually two supposed giants underground by the river. They're both reportedly somewhere around 150 feet tall. Supposedly, one was a good giant, one was a bad giant, according to the lore. And The local university here has done sound readings on the ground and confirmed there are massive bodies under the ground that are made of stone. Um, and also, look at all the mountain ranges around the planet that look like people. If you got giants and they got turned to stone by a weapon or by a deity, because, there's also the possibility that we were just kind of like today. An advanced culture on one side of the planet and, or maybe around the planet in locations, and less advanced, more rudimentary or more ancient cultures still doing their thing. Now, like today, uh, everybody knows because of communication that those people that choose to stay as indigenous, they still get the news. But if you were at a time when the indigenous people didn't get the news, because there wasn't any way for them to get a communication, if you saw a war and a nuclear blast or anything going off like that, and you didn't know what the ships were, what the vehicles were, what bombs were, you might consider what you were seeing to be a war of gods, or a god had destroyed an area because it's evil. And there might be something like that going on too in our past that we haven't considered. Maybe things weren't so different then as they are. They might be similar to that time. Might have been similar to this time, in just the tech difference and the types of people that lived and interacted here. Some may have lived in cities and may have had bad cultures. Some may have been migratorial or tribal. We have no idea, and we don't have enough archaeological evidence to paint a really clear picture. We've got a few pictures we can paint, but they're constantly adjusting when we get new information. So it would stand to reason that we have probably a far more complex past than we understand, unfortunately. It would be nice to have a better understanding of it. And I think with the advancements in technology and the ability to test our ground for DNA, we might get some more clues. Oh, and by the way, on that note, DNA and ground testing, the Lovelock Cave area was tested. I think it was last year, with new DNA testing that allows them to pull genetic information out of the soil. And they managed to find enough petrified scat in the area that they were able to determine that the Adeena people in the Lovelock Cave were vegetarians, for the most part. So, the Paiute stories come in a little question there. But then, if it wasn't a land grab, might have been defensive. We don't know because we weren't there. So we really don't have any position to say anything about the past until we can find something that proves it. Because it's all opinion or conjecture without proof. So, sorry guys, we're going to be walking into the dark. Yay, got a front porch light on for you guys. Ah, it's really bright. Don't mean to blind you guys. There. Now I look like a person. Really quiet tonight. And I don't smoke in the house because it's not my house. Autumn. Can I post photos in the community section? I believe so. If you have any troubles, send me a message and I will add you as a person that can post if it won't let you do it naturally. But I think I have it set so you can just do it if you're, subscribed. But if not, let me know and I'll try to fix it. If I can fix it. I don't know if I can adjust those settings or not. I can edit some things on my channel and I can't edit other things, so I'll try to help if I can. The other option is you could post them to your channel and just let me know to come look. Because you have the option to post to your channel. You can at least put photos up if you want. It's not hard. Okay, Judy. Anthropologist said on a Q&A tonight that there are no Bigfoot Sasquatch hybrids that could develop a full fetus. She said that doesn't happen with us humans, or does it? If it didn't happen, I wouldn't have functional tapetum lucidum in my eyes. And there's lots of lore that suggests that science is full of it. Some things out there, yeah, you probably can't. We can't interbreed with because they're probably not close enough relatives. It'd be like, mules and goats trying to mate. But other cryptids might. So there's lots of lore that says different. They may have gotten DNA from something that can't reproduce with us, though. But there are also potentially 240 different species out there. So DNA sample from one creature doesn't really tell you a lot if there are 240 different kinds of things out there. It tells you that one can't mate with you. What is that one? Okay, Judy, yes, I'm wondering why they keep saying that. And Patty is not a human hybrid. That's because we're probably cracking a lot of that information open by communicating with each other about it. And people who don't want that information to be known are probably freaking out right now and trying to shut everything down that sounds like an answer. That's just a hypothetical, though, right? Okay, autumn, the giants move in stone, busting loose. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, earthquakes underground. Spider, some of those rock formations are clearly couples in the act. Yeah, I know. Uh-huh. What would you do if you knew it was your last day? Look at what some of the people did in Pompeii. Okay. Beezer, I was just thinking of something that may help you. If you can find someone to do it yourself, look into getting access to the under library of OSU. The copies are in the presidential library. Oh, well, I know how to get into that library. Thank you for that information. I didn't know they had copies of that sort of thing there. Okay, Autumn, Lovelock Caves. Maybe they had a bad one like legends say. Could been. Could have been just cultural conflict too. We don't know. Only the people that were doing the action would have known that. Could have also just been a fear response because of the creature's size. You know, they're huge. Most people today freak out when they see anything huge. I mean, How many people freak out when you see Bigfoot? How many people end up with stress or PTSD from seeing something that big that they are not expecting to see? A lot of people. It would stand to reason that it wouldn't be any different in the past. If they weren't aware of them being there and living next to them and then they discovered them, they'd probably freak out, like we do. Oh, yeah, no, yeah. My battery's starting to go. Yeah, give me about 10 or 15 more minutes and then I'll probably be out. Anyway, okay, thank you. A good idea. I've not really used my channel that way before. I'm a bit behind my doing it. Yeah, it's easy. It's not bad. It's not difficult. All you have to do is download the Studio app and go from there. It's really simple to do. I can figure it out, and I'm a dummy that doesn't use tech and actively try to avoid it. Something just moved over there and sounds small. By the way, happy Easter, everybody. Flying around like green goblins. What did I miss? What's flying around like green goblins, huh? Oh, high-tech stuff. Yeah, when I was living up in the Seattle area, occasionally there would be something that looked like a human being flying on what looked like a hoverboard above the city. I only saw it twice in the 11 years I was there. Didn't get a picture of it either time because I was driving both times. I'd like to know what that was. Probably a piece of tech with somebody on it, would be my guess. Sorry. Just putting it out. Okay. Let's see if I can plug this thing in. Haha, how you doing, baby girl? You such a sweetheart, baby. I love you, puppers. You're my darling. Yeah. You look so tired, baby. I'll let you explain that theory. Anyhow, human alive. We have a child in Zuni tribe. Hadsabe, a native right now. Well, ooh, you just popped your shoulder. You alright? Cat bite. Oh, I hope that makes you feel better that you popped your shoulder. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you like that. I'd probably try to straighten stuff out if it hurt. And go back to the Constitution. I'm sorry. It's documents here. Oh yeah. I know the video. And I got read up on some of the interactions that go back a couple hundred years. You'll find that a lot of Native Americans were really tall. Pontiac, if I remember right, Chief Pontiac, might have been him. Anyway, back east there was I think he was Algonquin chief or chief's son. He was 10 foot tall, and his father was 12. My own native family, Weiss, I had a cousin that was 10 foot tall man named Two Bears. Not the chief Two Bears, but a different Two Bears. Not an uncommon name. I used to look at yeah, it's a great song. Hey, Gossip Sabra. Welcome. and then sped it off on the computer. But the old roller is this sorry, do you have electronic also the deep woods and scare things. There's a same place again. I don't know when I did see it in the center of water. Uh-oh. Is that better? Copy. Unless you let me know that. Sounds like my radio. Hopefully that's better now. I don't use my... Is that better? Does that make a difference? Because the only thing I had done differently was I had my phone plugged in to charge a little bit. Yeah, Amy, that's true. They did not want you to know there were 240 Squatch species. My grandmother claimed there was somewhere between 200 and 240 that she was aware of. So I just throw it up on the high end, and I don't know how many other cryptids are out there that she didn't consider to be human enough to put in with Sasquatch. Because there are probably other leftover species and stuff that are probably in very small pockets. I don't know, did any of you guys see the new video out of Australia? There is something going after a shark down there. Actually, it's a pod of some things. My co-writer just sent me a clip. And it's... I am not sure what attacked the shark, but the shark was definitely screaming and trying to get out of the water, and I mean that for real. So if you find that clip, be aware it's very violent. So be ready to see some gore, put it that way. And this poor shark is probably 6 or 8 feet long, and whatever is after him it swims faster than him. It looks like it's got a longer neck. It almost looks serpent-like in some angles, and it's very quick. There's only like 30 seconds of this thing like trying to flee from whatever is attacking it. And if you closely examine it and you start pulling apart the film, though it's blurry as buggers, there is one shot. So the shark comes up out of the water and it tries to get away from whatever it's trying to attack it and eat it. It gets pulled off of the rocks, it turns and tries to go inshore. When it's turning to go inshore and it's trying to swim away, and you can tell it can't swim fast because its tail is half missing, the head of the attacking creature comes out of the water in 2 frames. It's blurry, but with sharpening and clarification and enlargement, you can tell it's got a very block shaped face. It's got a pair of what look like mandibles or massive tusks. They don't look like walrus tusks because they're hooked. They look more like either rattlesnake teeth, because they got that kind of flare out look to them when they come up, when it opens its mouth. And its mouth looks like it's a different shape than a normal mouth too, because it looks like there's the teeth and then there's like a jaw plate, and the tooth, the fang and the jaw plate lock this way, so it doesn't have the same action as a modern jaw. And it also looks like the bottom of the jaw can split and open, kind of like a snake's jaw. So I am not sure if it's some sort of, I'm not sure what it is. So far I haven't found anything that compares to this modern animal. Head shape's wrong. The tooth set's wrong. The fact that the jaw looks like it's trying to open into a split, like an unhinging jaw of a snake, that's wrong. Kind of looks like a plesiosaur in the body and the length of the neck, but it does not look like a plesiosaur when it pops its head up out of the water and opens its mouth to take another bite of the shark. It looks more like a wahila or something. It looks like something really archaic, but I don't think we've got it in our fossil record. Whatever it is, I don't think it's in our fossil record, because I don't remember any marine animal that I've studied from ancient times that had a snake-like head. So I don't know what is going on with that film. But yeah, there's a shark attacked in Australia. What is it? I think you can look it up probably. It's been bipping around for the last 2 days on the internet. Okay, Sovereign. There is an insane interference blocking what you're saying. Can you hear me? But strange electronic interference. Silent on my end. Wonder if it's my phone. Now it's gone. Huh. Yeah, likely, Autumn. You're probably right on that. I know it's possible. Okay, it's just cleared up right now. We're good. Okay. That's so weird. Odd. And now it's back into audio issues. Electronic interference. It's back. Well, that means either there's a piece of equipment somewhere around here that's messing with my phone, or somebody don't like me talking. Yeah, I'm holding the phone in my hand, but I'm making sure that my fingers are on the side. My hand is not underneath where the microphone is. So I am not sure why it would be doing that. Yeah, I know it's never happened before. Could be the giants topic. That's true. But not all giants. These are but not all giants were large in size. It was their mental or spiritual capacity, and sometimes it's their strength too. Because we had what we call the little giants here, or what you call the stick Indians. They were considered incredibly strong. You're getting good rest, baby. Oh, honey, you good girl. I'm sorry, my dog is snoring. Hey, bad pup. Yeah, I know. From inside to outside, I don't know if it would make a difference, but it could. My reception up here for how many bars I have is kind of spotty sometimes, so it might be because I'm on a hillside and I might be getting some deflected signal up here. I know that when it's stormy up here, my recordings for lives gets really bad. Is it still okay? Because I just plugged my phone back in. Does that make a difference? Oh, you heard that, Valentine? The screech outside? Yeah, I wasn't really called like here at night, but sometimes during the day I listen to. I also hear owls and dogs and west here. Roars when something's used to hear, and that kind of screech from the south. Weird sounds you just hear all the time. You just have to pay attention to them. Back to it. It might be because I've been plugging in. Alright. That must mean I cannot attempt to charge my phone while I'm trying to do a live. Must be messing with the electronics or something in my phone. Yeah, no kidding. So, saying too much. Okay, these are his father. Corona, just oh yeah, people are always watching this and interfering. Something about music. Yes, they don't care about that. I'm sorry. Well, let me finish up then, and we'll just call it a night since it's too scattered. There's that much events already. Maybe I'll have to do a Sunday late night interview or something. It's pretty big. But at the same time, logically, that is a possibility. I've always been waiting to see that. Because I've been wild right. You can't expect the thing to be there or not be there and then walk around with what you want. It's better just wait and see her to the high ground and take a look. after my reference to 61 years, I'm pretty sure my grandmother had some things, other than the ones attacking the shark, that are hurting it towards the shore. And also during that turn area, when your head's visible to the attacking creature, there's another creature behind it pops out of the water. You can see its profile. It looks again very blocky, very black nose, sort of long head. So it doesn't just match modern sea creatures are wearing. I already looked at seals, sea lions, walruses. Now seals and sea lions will attack sharks, but they won't attack sharks until about 6 feet. Walruses don't attack sharks. And there isn't anything that we know of longneck or that big of a snake in there. Ocean snakes are only 6-8 feet in length at the most. Usually they're 4 foot. And I don't think we've got any eel or 3 to 6 feet. So I have no idea what that thing is. The one capture I have, I might put those up after this break. I captured the guy clarified. Captured when the shark ate itself. The creature pursuing it comes up out of the water and you can see about 4 foot length, and you see kind of bulbous body under the water. So I have that captured and clarified. I might put those up on that list section just so you guys can see the skill shots that I thought. Because it does have a very black head, but it's very neat, and those massive freaking bangs or tusks, whatever they are, very irritating. And it looks like it's side down high, like whales do. Not really flat on the side. And it looks like it's got some kind of resentment near the back here, near the belly. Flesh on that. It's got some sort of a hearing apparatus and that, it looks like. And my connection's going to be one for me. And I love it. Oh, pretty sharp. Oh, sorry. There's something here that mimics an ocean blue. So you'll hear a fog line, whoa, a rock kind of funky sound. We've got a lot of those where there's something up on the hillside that makes it seem like that. So the buoy will start up off the edge, fog up under the channel. Pay attention to what you do. And then somewhere up in the mountains, and it's not an echo point. You'll hear the answer to whatever it is outside. And I do know somebody have a cabin in that area. And the birds for a while, but he claimed that he would hear that funny buoy sound when the buoys weren't going off out in the lake. Because buoys don't always sound off, they only sound off when there's weather or fog, something that's navigating easily. The sound is lost in the rocks. They said up in the ravine right where his cabin was, you hear that stuff all the time. If I have a buoy about 20 miles out of town, so I would have somewhere around the cabin, but or if I could get up there with a great sound. Otherwise, I would have to go down by the beach. Dino sounds and recreated recordings of what they might have sounded like if done radio shows. One thing that is three different microscopes. They use the olfactory nasal passages, the channels in our skull that they propagate the sound use the reproduction primitive vocal box, and then the ear through the apparatus that sounds, see what the gut's skull produces sounds, and all kinds of things. Lots of raptors, so there's sounds that sound like the brain of the dog. It sounds. You can have kids who might realize you're going to need kind of on day because some of the landborne sounds people are hearing are probably not Bigfoot. And you can find some of the sounds in the audience. And you go and listen to show tonight, and you listen to some of the dino sounds in the playlist, you might come up with this and that's pretty sure that we do a good job at getting why set of examples of sounds. Yeah, I know. Whatever that snake might be wants to be. And yeah, I might put it in those websites. I'll have to make sure to put a link in that video so that you can look at it. It really looks like some sort of unknown radio exactly sharp. size of it, and whatever it was, and the news. Because it looked like a bullet coming out of that shark, and that shark literally jumped out of the water. So whatever it was scared it. I think it was the Boston. Really don't care about that. Additionally, like you said, it's private. Oh, thanks. Sorry. Yeah, I've on that yeah, I've been getting voice interference on my phone a lot this week, so maybe it's just crops of new lines that they put in the area for laying some new cables, fiber optics and stuff like that, so it's alright guys, well, I think I'm on night, been on 2.5 hours. Sorry I haven't answered your questions, but it's also like sorry about the lip reading. There are a lot of lords that prove very similar to point something like yeah, I guess I'm having just too much interference tonight. Thank you everybody for hanging out with us, and thank you for letting me share a little bit more information about, giants and some of the past lore and some of the ways that they traveled. And yeah, those particular giants supposedly mainly lived here on the West Coast and throughout the Midwest and Southwest. So if there's any other lore anywhere else, let me know. But I'm pretty sure most of them are just a big pocket here in this Western Hemisphere area. Other than the fact that they're overseas, but here in the United States. There might be some left up north, but I don't know. Anyway, I probably should scoot up here since my sound is not doing the best and my reception is starting to be a punk. I gotta pay attention to the puppy anyway. You know, babies. Alright, guys. I'll try to get another live up here this week. And I'll let you guys know what's going on with her once I get her into a vet. Yeah, baby, you're okay. Alright, everyone. You have a good night, and thank you so much for being here, and happy Easter weekend. I hope you guys had a good one and got enough rest to have a good week. Take care, everyone.